Hey everyone, and after a very long time, welcome back to WP Games again. In this video, what I'm going to do is try to use Nginx as a reverse proxy to serve WordPress container. If you have been following this channel, you must have seen in the last video we created a WordPress instance using Docker container. And for that, we used a default Apache-based container. But there's another way of doing this, which is using Nginx. And the reason we want to use Nginx would be that it could be used as a reverse proxy, which means that it can be used not just to serve WordPress, but it could be used to serve more applications with a single endpoint. So yeah, let's jump into it. To begin with, what I'm going to do is create a new Docker Compose file. And let's call it docker compose.nginx.yml. And one of the really good things about Docker Compose is that you can override one file with the other. So we can use our original Docker Compose YML file as our base Docker Compose file and add extra configuration in our Nginx file. And let's try to see how we can do that. So I'm going to copy the first two services version. And now coming to the WordPress part, I'm also going to copy everything, but instead of using a WordPress version 5, I will use WordPress Alpine. Well, actually, I forgot the container name, so let's find that out quickly. So it's called PHP 7.4 FPM Alpine. We can also build it from PHP 7.3, or we can also build it from PHP 7.2. Actually, no, the default image is 7.3. So let's go with 7.3 Alpine. 5 hyphen FPM hyphen Alpine is the short name. So let's use that. 5 hyphen FPM hyphen Alpine. So a quick description about PHP FPM is it's nothing but a process manager. So when a request comes to a web server, it hands it over to another application server to do the processing. In our case, the application server could be PHP FPM. So what PHP FPM does is it executes the PHP part and then hands over the content back to the server. Apache has modules built inside it, which does that. So you don't need an additional middle layer or middle process manager to do that. Nginx doesn't have that part built in, so that's why we use FPM, which is the fast process manager. So what happens is that we will need two containers. One is the WordPress container, which only uses WordPress and serves it through FPM. And then we also need an Nginx container to actually accept the user request or to handle the web serving part. Now, having said that, everything else remains the same. Oh yeah, another thing that changes is that this image doesn't really expose port 80 because port 80 now is supposed to be served through Nginx. That's our web server. This is not our web server anymore, but the port it actually exposes is 9000. So we're gonna change that. And let us call the WordPress image as WordPress FPM. And now the important part. The way we run these Docker, the way we merge these Docker files is by using this special command. Docker compose remains the same. Then we use F and then followed by the first base file, then F, followed by the second file that we want to override, and then up hyphen. But before doing that, let me quickly show you what Docker machines are running. So right now I have two Docker containers running, which are Experiments WordPress and Experiment DB. These are based on the containers we built on our previous videos. And now let's see what happens when I run the new command. Basically, I should be seeing a third container. Actually, up also works fine, but I think I should be passing these at the end. So the order actually matters. And let's take a look. Docker PS. Perfect. We have an FPM image also running now, and it's exposing port 9000, as you can see. And we have WordPress, which is exposing its port 80 to port 8000. So what we'll do next is create an Nginx image and try to hook this up to the WordPress FPM image, and let us run it on 8001. So the next thing I'm going to do is find Nginx image. I have Nginx latest, or I have Nginx stable. So I'm going to use the stable one. Let's call this Nginx image Nginx table, and the port that we want to expose, and the container name. So container name. Okay, I made a small mistake in my last container name. This should be called FPM, and the new one will be called Nginx. Let's try to run this and see if we have our Nginx container. Made an error somewhere. Yeah. So the container name Nginx already exists. Yeah, because our previous container was called Nginx. So the fix for this is just docker compose down and then restarting everything. Alright, I'm going to manually stop these containers. Then run down again. Yeah, there are orphan containers which we will remove. Okay, that is much cleaner. Alright, so now we have our Nginx running as well. And it is also running on port 80. We forgot to map the Nginx ports. So I'm going to do that next. Map Nginx port 80 to 8001. Run the command again. I'll check what's happening. This is our original WordPress. We haven't touched it yet. And 8001 is our Nginx. So the Nginx server is also running fine. The next thing I want to do is connect the Nginx to FPM. And I don't know how to do that, so I'm going to read a blog or something. Let's go with Medium. So usually there is an Nginx file that I need to create, which maps Nginx's port 80 to FPM's port 9000. That's all it needs to be done. And yeah, look at that. That's the file, which is the Nginx conf. So create a directory named Nginx with the real config. Instead, we're going to create a directory named config. Forgot the name of the file. It's called nginx.conf. This is the server listening on port 80 and mapping to WordPress 9000. So this WordPress is nothing but host name, but in our case, it's called WordPress experiments. We can either use this or we can use this. So I'm going to use this WordPress FPM 9000, and that should be it, I think. Let's try to, actually, no, that is not it yet. We need to map this file inside the Nginx container. So I will go back to our Nginx override, use volumes, config /Nginx is mapped to this path inside the container, and hopefully that should be it. So what I'm expecting to happen is when I open up localhost port 8001, it should simply redirect me back to localhost 8000. Because essentially, if everything's working fine, then the page localhost/8000, localhost 8001 should open. But then WordPress will try to check if the URL in the browser is same as the website name. In this case, it won't because the website is on localhost port 8000. So then it'll probably try to redirect. I don't know if I'm correct, but this is how I'm assuming. So it should just go to, it should either load WordPress on 8001 or it should just redirect to 8000. In either case, I'm going to say that it's working. So running the command, restart command again. Here, as you can see, Docker Compose is actually really smart. It detects the configuration that has changed and only restarts those containers. The other containers are just untouched. So now let's go back and see what happens to our 8001. There you go. So it got redirected to 8000, which means everything's working fine. At this point, what we want to do is get rid of our existing Apache server. We don't need that anymore, right? And we want to replace that Apache server with the brand new FPM image. So what we can do is we can actually override all of this. In this case, the way Docker Compose overrides work is that it uses all the configuration from the base image, and then if something with the same key value exists, if something with the same key exists, then it overrides. So we actually don't need all of this here because it's already defined in the base image. We also don't need this. We definitely need the port. We don't need links and depends. We don't need restart. I think this is all we need. I'm going to restart it again. At this point, when I restart, this container WordPress 5 should not launch because technically with this command, it doesn't exist. So let me first shut down everything and then restart. It looks like it's still started. Of course, the reason it started is because this is called WordPress FPM, which should instead be called WordPress. And we will go here and also update this to WordPress. And then we will restart. Just shut down everything. Restart. Yep. So now I only got a database container, an Nginx container, and an FPM container, which is brilliant. And localhost. Now, if I go to port 8001, it should try to redirect me back to 8000 and then give me an error because nothing exists on 8000. Amazing. So 8001 redirects back to 8000 and then fails. And the easiest way to fix that is change this port to 8000 and restart everything again. Okay, maybe I should not have done that. Shutting down everything gracefully and then restarting. Let's try again. This is not a bug, actually. This is also another problem in my image. So the way these ports work is that if there is a key value pair, it just gets replaced. But if there is a list, in this case, these ports is nothing but a list or an array, then they get merged. So what's happening is the port 8000 is already being used by the WordPress container. I don't know if there is a way to get rid of it. If there is, I will comment it or create a new video and then link it here later. But for now, I'm just gonna comment this part. So I will not create port 8000 for my WordPress container, and instead I will create port 8000 for my Nginx container. Let's shut down everything and then restart. Yeah, and this time it worked. Still not loading though, so let's see what's going on. We do not see an Nginx image at all, which means the Nginx container failed to start. Yeah, I don't know why it didn't start before, but it seems to be working fine now. Let's just quickly double check. There we go. We are going to also quickly check if this page is being served by Nginx or not. And the way I'm going to do it is I can just check the network requests. The headers should let me know if it is Nginx or Apache. Powered by PHP, server Nginx. Now what's happened? The reason we're not seeing styles, I really don't know. Everything seems to be loading fine. No, so everything seems to be redirecting back. But this is a problem in Nginx config. So the Nginx server thinks that the file doesn't exist, and that's why it tries to redirect to PHP or something like that. I think the problem here is that, yeah, this is the problem here. But my lack of Nginx knowledge is gonna take some time to solve this. So if any file that doesn't exist on this Nginx machine gets forwarded to PHP, and since all of our WordPress files exist on the FPM container and not the Nginx container, I think that's why it thinks that this file doesn't exist and then hands over the request as a PHP and eventually gets redirected. So basically the Nginx config that we copied is not perfect, or we are missing a step here. I'm going to quickly check the volumes. Yeah, look at that. They are also mounting the same folder, the www folder inside Nginx, and the same directory or the same path is also mounted inside the FPM. I think that's the problem. That's the thing we were missing. So let's go back here. But the mounts www already exist. Oh yeah, it did not get mapped because it needs to be here. So we have this mount, but this is only being carried forward to the WordPress machine and not to the Nginx machine. So that's one thing we needed to do here. And once we have done that, we can restart everything again. Then go back into Nginx machine. Yep. So let's see if everything works fine now. Perfect. So that is it. Yeah, 8,000. And now we are going to map everything back to port 80. Okay, that was only one change. And then restart everything. This is not working because WordPress is originally installed on port 8000 and not on port 80. I can use WP-CLI to go back and change that, but that could be something for another video. For now, I'm just going to continue using port 8000. Yeah, and that's pretty much it for this video. If you liked the video, make sure to press the like button and subscribe to this channel for more such tutorials. There's a lot more interesting stuff gonna come soon. See you in the next video then. Have a great one.